Today on Cause It's Fun, we're going to continue our duct tape Wonder Woman project. Today I'm going to install a zipper and make the skirt. Now if you haven't seen part 1, I suggest going back and watching that. Now let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is make a pattern for the skirt. I'm going to start off by using a ruler to draw the center line, then I'll work my way around from there. Now for the side panels, it turns out that my ruler is actually the perfect width, so that makes things a lot easier. I'm going to add a little bit extra to each of the pattern pieces. That'll make it a lot easier to assemble later on. Now that we got the pattern made for our skirt, let's go ahead and take this thing off the dress form and add a zipper to it. Now we can't sew the zipper in. I've already tried that, it doesn't work. So instead we're going to use contact cement. So to do this, we're going to roughen up both sides with some sandpaper. I'm using about 60 grit, so that way it gets it nice and rough. This will give the glue something to really stick to. Then we're going to put contact cement on the duct tape that we just roughened up and on the zipper. After a few minutes, we just stick it right on and it should stay. Now that we have the zipper in, let's continue with the skirt. So we're going to make a sheet of blue duct tape. To do this, I'm going to roll out some saran wrap onto a flat surface, then I'm going to cover it with duct tape. Then I'm going to flip it over and cover the other side with more duct tape. Then I'm going to go ahead and roughen up the surface with some sandpaper. This time I'm using about 230 grit. The next step is to trace the pattern pieces onto the blue duct tape. So while I do this boring task, I'm going to share with you some fun facts. So Wonder Woman's first appearance was in All-Star Comics number 8 in 1941, but her first appearance on a cover didn't happen until Sensation Comics number 1 in 1942. But what else happened in 1942 was Gimbel's department store started selling Venetian blinds that were held together with duct tape. Now Jack Hall bought Manco and rebranded the duct tape brand into what we know and love today in 1971. But what else happened in 1971 is that Wonder Woman was featured on the cover of Miss Magazine. So now you know the things you gotta know. Let's continue on with the next step. Now that we have all the pieces cut out, it's time to start assembling the skirt. Now for the first time in this entire project, we're actually going to be using the duct tape for its original purpose, and that is to stick stuff together. The skirt will stay on using just the power of duct tape. After I finished attaching the skirt, I noticed that some of the parts started curling up. Now that looks kind of stupid, so in order to fix that, I'm going to hit it with the heat gun and then shape it with my hands until it lays flat. So to distress this costume, I'm going to start off with the highlights and hit it with some white and green oil paints. Then I'm going to go back over it with some burnt umber, the same burnt umber that we used for the top part of the costume in part 1. Now you want to make sure that you lay in all the shadows where the shadows would normally fall. This will bring out all the details in your costume and add a lot of depth to your costume and make it look like it's actually made out of some substantial material instead of just duct tape. Well, now our Wonder Woman costume is completely complete. Now if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly suggest going over and checking that out. And also don't forget to like and subscribe so that way you don't miss a single video. And if you want to watch bonus content and support me further, go ahead and check out my Patreon page.